This is kind of it's a little not difficult, but it's weird to play this stuff back and understand the teachings that we actually got, that I got growing up. And again, once internalize these things as an adult, man, I really realized that a lot of the teachings that I got, it was wrong, and to the point that when I first did this, I don't know if this is part you want to know, but when I first did this internship with Men Stopping Violence, one of the young ladies used to work, Phyllis, came to me after the first week, and she was like, "So what do you think?" And I said to her, I said, "Well, Phyllis, I love it, but it kind of made me feel bad because I thought I was a pretty good guy all around, and come to find out, this stuff it touched me. Not kind of, it touched me, and it wasn't a good feeling. It wasn't a good feeling inside. It really wasn't, and you just have to find out ways to right my wrongs, if you will, and to other people that I run into, which is the hardest thing. The people that you circuit yourself around. It's easy to tell somebody you don't know what they're doing wrong, but I have to address that in my family, men in my family and things of that nature, and how it affected others. Golly, I can only imagine how my sisters felt, especially the ones that played softball and volleyball, how they would feel when I would say things like, "There's no such thing as female athletes. There are only women that play sports." So all those things, playing back the things, the comments I've made, it just internally wasn't a good feeling. It wasn't a good feeling, and then for me it was, how can I, do better? How can I do better?
So what was the consequence for your relationship with your sisters?
The consequence was we'd always fight. That was the consequence. Well, not every single time, but the majority of the time we would fight. And I wasn't a smart thing on my part. I'm the youngest of 7, and of course I lost a lot of those battles growing up. But again, the man in me still told me, even though they were older, that they were just women and they couldn't beat me. So I'm going to try to, keep on agitating, and it affected our growing up a little, to that degree. We did a lot of fighting around those topics.
And so one of the bigger message, part of the message was women don't play sports or women aren't athletes. But the bigger message that was also being sent is what men do is more important than what women do.
Right.
What were the consequences for you internalizing that belief?
Well, the consequence for me was, if I can think back to my initial thoughts or thinking around it, the consequences internally for me was, I had to really adjust and accept that they are athletes just as much as men are. And how I tried to do that was at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, UAB, where I went to undergrad. There's a young lady named Jackie who played basketball for UAB, and she, at the time, this was her last year, and she worked in the gym at this time behind the desk. And me and 2 of my fraternity brothers would always pick her to play on our team whenever we were there, because I don't know if that it had anything to do with how I initially was thinking, but at that point, I accepted that, she's good, she can play, so let's pick her up on our team. So that was one of the things that I did, and started acknowledging, look, this is a human being still, and this is not right. Can't really verbalize what I want to say around that, but it was tough. It was really tough internalizing it for me anyway. And again, I've always considered myself to be raised good, good wholesome young man and these things. But again, I know there's a lot of training that I had to do, a lot of work I had to do, and now I have a son. And it's important to me that I don't teach him the same things I taught. Like, I don't know if you wanted this part or not, but even when it comes down to dating and things of that nature, I had to retrain, if you will, myself on how I was going about dating women and things of that nature. And if I want to go out to dinner, I can call her. But if I just want somebody to come over and hang out and have sex, I just call this girl and come over. And that's just an awful thinking. That's terrible thinking. And but that's what I grew up learning. You get all the gusto you can, and you get it now.
So where did that message come from?
That came from just being in the neighborhood. Being in the neighborhood, it was get phone calls from 2 or 3, 4 different girls. And my sisters never would, say that's not right. And my dad would never say that's not right. Well, he wasn't there at my teenage years, but my older brother would never say that's not right. But they would laugh at it, and oh, he's gonna be a player. He's this and he's that. You know what I mean? And which now that we're talking about it, lets me understand that they were just as conditioned as I was, and it, can't think of words I'm looking for right now.
They were passing on the conditioning.
Right. Right.
To you as well, because they were your older brothers, right?
Right, older brother, older sisters, and I'm the youngest in my family, and that's where I learned from them. And my brother, he was one of my idols growing up. He had all the nice clothes, he had a nice car, he had all the girls, and I was like, well, this is what you're supposed to do. You get you a nice car and you have a bunch of girls. And then I hung with his friends because he was older. He always had to take me everywhere he went. So I learned from them, and then my friends, of course, I'm older, I realized none of us knew a hill of beans, but that's where I learned it. I learned all that stuff from, and watching, TV, videos, and things of that nature, which is one reason why, you can come to my house anytime and you won't catch a video on, not one. So that's one of the ways that it's carried over for me. So in trying to correct it.
Any other messages? I mean, you spoke a little bit about messages you got about women, messages you got about being a man. Any others you can think of that come to mind? Any other about women, or how you were told that women should act, or a message you got about women?
Yeah, well, women are supposed to, the word, I probably honestly think the one of the biggest messages I got, that a man runs his family and a woman basically submits to her husband. That's the biggest message I got, and I even recall having a conversation with Belinda. I don't remember Belinda's last name. It was a young lady I was dating back in '98, and we were talking about church. I can't remember how we got on the church, but she was talking about when the women in the pulpit and this, that, and the other, and I was telling her, well, that's not how it's supposed to be. And we got into an argument about it. And I said, well, even my mother thinks the same way. She told me the same thing. And even growing up, I remember my mother saying, a woman's not supposed to be a head of the church. She's not supposed to take on certain roles in the church. So it's like, I mean, what do you do? What do you do? You get these messages as a young man from everywhere. It's just sad that I can see all this stuff now, and I come from an abusive stepfather, and with that being said, now I understand why my mother, some of the things she said, why she said it, because they were together 25 years, and some of the things she said, I don't know if she necessarily believed it, but that's what she was taught, and whether she was just playing her role in that submissive world because she didn't want to be abused anymore or fussed at or whatever the case may be. And the teachings came straight from her. Pretty much, like I said, I learned a lot from the men in my family, my dad and guys in my community. But my mother, and when I look back, she taught me a lot about what a man is supposed to be and how a woman is supposed to be and things a woman is not supposed to do. I remember her laughing and joking, oh, he's going to be a daddy before he's 14. Yeah, and my aunts, and it was a joke, but that was just how they would go about it. And subconsciously, I don't know if I purposely, protected myself from that to make them wrong, or if it was the fact that I hated the fact that we had, all these siblings, and my mother is the only one my dad was married to, and it was just my brother and I that he had. I have 5 older siblings, but my brother and I are the only 2 that came from the same woman, and there are 5 of us and 3 other women, but we all were raised together. So with that being said, he taught me a lot about being a man, but my mother also taught me a lot of things about being a man also. But even though some things she taught me was wrong, she was teaching me what she thought was right and what she had learned. Again, this is coming from a woman who was also raped at 15 years old and had a baby behind the rapist. So you know, it gets tough. It gets tough, and I appreciate the work that I began to do with myself, and again, helping my son and my nieces and everybody that I come in contact with that I can potentially touch, and it's what I want to do. So